All right, the 53-man roster cut down. Officially, the 49ers have to have these cuts filed within 4 minutes, 1 p.m. Pacific time. So this is one of those shows where you get to watch me work and I get to talk about the cuts as they come in. I'm going to go ahead and share what I'm working on right now. That's my 49ers 90-man roster, which you've been able to access all off season. You know what? I'll even share the link with you today too, in case some people have been asking about that. But 90-man depth chart is about to be on the screen right now. There you go. All right. So the 49ers, if you follow along here on the right, I'm tracking the cuts. We already found out 2 today through reports. Tay Martin, the receiver, and Quantrez Knight, the defensive back, versatile defensive back. There's a good chance that the 49ers bring both of those guys back to practice squad. Now, those are both players who were waived, which means that they are now exposed to waivers for the next 24 hours. If they clear waivers starting tomorrow, the 49ers can sign them to the practice squad. Anyway, if you want to take a look at this, I'm copying and pasting the link. This will be a living, breathing document. I'll be making the updates as they come in. At some point, the link is down on the screen if you want to check it out. So at some point in the next few minutes, sometimes it happens exactly at 1. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But as soon as the cuts are finalized, the 49ers will release a big list. It will be an official press release of who they cut. So some of the stuff that's leaking right now, that's word that's coming in from agents, maybe players themselves who announce on social media that they've been either waived or released. Now, the difference between a waive and a release is that a waive happens when a player is on a rookie deal. A release happens when a player is on a vested veteran. A waive means they're exposed to waivers, so the entire league is going to have a chance to put in a claim for that player. After 24 hours, if no claim has been put in, then that player is free to sign elsewhere. A player who's released is immediately free to sign elsewhere. So keep that in mind as we go through this cut. There's going to be different terminology for different types of players. So far, Tay Martin and Quantrez Knight. And then a little bit earlier, we saw, this was 2 days ago, Nate Brooks, Ladarius Hamilton, Breeland Speaks, Kiava Tizino, and Spencer Wagee cut. That is a total of 7 players. The 49ers also traded Trey Lance. So they started this process with 90 players, and the 49ers are now down to 82. 7 players cut, 1 traded, and Trey Lance. That means a total of 8. The 49ers have gone from 90 to 82. They still need to go from 82 to 53. And then they could begin the process of rebuilding their practice squad. And that's going to be a 16-player practice squad plus Alfredo Gutierrez. So we are a minute away right now from 1 p.m. We are 20 seconds away exactly. It's 12:59 and 40 seconds. So we are keeping our eyes on Twitter. We're keeping our eyes on the email. We're keeping our eyes on WhatsApp, on my chats, everything here as the 49ers approach the roster cut down. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is 1 p.m. 1 p.m. exactly. The roster cut down is here. According to Matt Mayoko, the 49ers have waived Ilm Manning, the tackle. They would like to get him back on the practice squad. I think that much is obvious. So Ilm Manning has been waived by the 49ers. Why don't we go here to the actual roster and make that move and add Ilm Manning to the list of people who've been cut. As you can see, Ilm Manning was the impressive guard/tackle, so we'll just call him the offensive lineman, but he played all left tackle in training camp, who came out of Hawaii as an undrafted free agent and impressed the 49ers enough to be under consideration for their practice squad. We'll see if Manning goes unclaimed. The 49ers certainly hope that he will. They view him as a guard for all intents and purposes because he's only 6'2". Tackles are normally taller. But Ilm Manning at 6'2", still held up against second and third stringers during the preseason. So he didn't have to fend off Joey Bosa and those kind of guys, but he still held up fairly well as a tackle. Now, there was a play where Trey Lance got crunched. That was Ilm Manning and Braden Willis getting beaten. So it wasn't, they were trying to double team an edge rusher against the Chargers, or no, that was the second week. That was against the Broncos, but it didn't work out. So he wasn't perfect, but Ilm Manning can move. Ilm Manning plays bigger than his height, and he is a very good candidate for the 49ers practice squad. It was always doubtful, and I didn't project Ilm Manning to make the 53. It was always doubtful that he was going to make the 53 just because of that height. He had ascended to second team only when Trent Williams was sitting, so he's more of a third team guy in the offseason. So Ilm Manning's cut. I have added him to the list of cuts. Again, the link is somewhere in the chat, probably several dozen messages down at this point. Maybe Mike can toss the link into the description. Mike, can you please do that? 49ers are down to 81 officially right now, and we should find out very soon because we have passed the deadline. So the 49ers press release should be dropping at any moment, some point during the next 3 hours. So I got a tweet about Ilm Manning. At Lombardi himself on Twitter, if you want to see the thoughts I'm putting out there right now. At 6'2", it was always going to be tough for Ilm Manning to make the 49ers 53-man roster, but his versatility, he did a good job at tackle, even though SF sees him as a guard long-term, makes him an ideal practice squad candidate. Boom. So far, Matt Barrows and I, we have our 53-man roster projection that we made for the Athletic. So far, so good with the 53-man roster projection. All the guys that have been cut, we project it to get cut. Jason Poe cut, also a candidate to return to the practice squad. So Jason Poe. Let's pop this open up again up on the screen. Poe, this was another player that we had projected to be a practice squad candidate. Improved a lot over the course of the year. Poe also a player who measurably doesn't stack up against the average NFL player. So I'm going to cut Jason Poe. I'm going to put him on the list. The 49ers are now down to 80. So, just like Ilm Manning is only 6'2", Jason Poe's got shorter arms, right? That's why he wasn't drafted originally, even though the athleticism is really impressive. So Poe's shorter than Manning too. So there's never even a thought that Poe would play tackle. But the thought was, okay, maybe he can be an NFL interior offensive lineman. Then some people said, well, maybe the 49ers can use him in specialty packages as a fullback. Well, when you have Kyle Juszczyk on your team, that's not really necessary. But Poe is really athletic. The arms, though, are shorter. That's the challenge he's working around. He spent last season on the practice squad, and there's a good chance he's going to spend this season on the practice squad for the 49ers again. Remember, they can fit 16 paid players on the practice squad against the cap and then a 17th international exception, and that is Alfredo Gutierrez. So Poe cut, and now we continue to wait over the course of this 49ers roster cut down. They got to get it down to 53, then they could start bringing players back. Veterans, they can start adding to their practice squad immediately, but a lot of the players you're going to have on your practice squad, the majority are players who will be waived today. They must first pass through waivers before you can add them to the practice squad starting tomorrow. So far for the 49ers today, waived Tay Martin, Quantrez Knight, Ilm Manning, Jason Poe. We are waiting for the 49ers official press release to drop that will have the entire list of names. Again, the 49ers have already had to make these cuts by now, so the league will know, but they need to be publicized now. And only a few of them have been publicized. Speaking of that, I'm going to be tracking the NFL Wire. Maybe we'll find out first here. There's always tricks that I can pull to try to get this news first for everybody. But the NFL probably is going to be processing everybody's cuts at the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if today's NFL transactions came out a little bit later. By the way, Nick Bosa did not sign and did not report by the 53-man cutdown. So he remains on the reserve list, which means the 49ers should be able to carry an extra player in theory right now. And then when Nick Bosa does eventually sign, if he does eventually sign, no, when he does eventually sign, then the 49ers will be able to move that player off of the 53-man roster, possibly onto injured reserve. That's beneficial because any player who did not make the 53-man roster, if they go on IR before the 53-man cutdown, they're not eligible to return this year. But if a player makes the 53 and is then cut or is then placed on IR, they are eligible to return after at least 4 games. I'm going to tweet about Jason Poe right now. Jason Poe and Ale Manning, both waived, are in similar boats. Jalen Graham has made the initial roster, by the way. That's big. I'm going to retweet Matt Barrows. Credit to Matt Barrows. Jason Poe and Ale Manning, both waived, are in similar boats. Shorter than typical offensive linemen, but both exceptionally athletic. 49ers like both of those players a lot. I just tweeted that. You can go ahead and follow me, Lombardi himself. So Jalen Graham has made the 53. We'll wait to see on D Winners. Graham was the final 49ers draft pick this year in the 7th round. Sideline to sideline speed has been electric. He played a DB-like position at Purdue in college so he can cover. That's a theme with all these 49ers linebackers. Fred Warner played a glorified linebacker, or I guess you could even say a glorified nickelback position at BYU. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles was a safety at Arizona. Dre Greenlaw was supposedly the fastest player on Arkansas's defense. D. Winters came up as a safety before converting to linebacker. I think D. Winters is going to make the team today too. So Jalen Graham has made the team. If you want to visualize that, that was in our projection. Jalen Graham is right here. So is D. Winters. The rookies are highlighted in yellow. So the left side of this line is the 53-man roster projection. So far, so good on our projection. The right side is who we predicted to be cut. So far, all the players that we've put into the cuts, which is highlighted over on the right side here in blue, we're on the right side of the delineating line. So the projection is still looking strong. Indianapolis did not find what it felt like was a fair value offer for Jonathan Taylor. So it's holding on to Jonathan Taylor. League sources told ESPN. Didn't get that Christian McCaffrey haul for Jonathan Taylor. But Jalen Graham's tape really, really did pop off the screen. So did D. Winters. I think the 49ers have a lot of optionality at linebacker. Now, people are wondering, why didn't they make a trade before the cutdown? I think a trade would have been much more likely had Oren Burks not gotten hurt on the Devontae Adams collision against the Raiders. Burks is going to be fine by week 1, but it was a lot harder to make somebody expendable when he was hurt, right? And that would have saved the 49ers some cap money too. So a couple things have conspired against the 49ers in potential trades. A, Oren Burks' injury, and B, the injuries to the kickers, to Jake Moody and Zane Gonzalez, especially Zane Gonzalez. The kicker market was blowing up earlier today. It was active, all kinds of movement, right? And the 49ers had initially planned to move Zane Gonzalez, who was their second kicker. But that didn't happen because he strained his calf last Friday in pregame warmups. Crazy stuff. Crazy development from the 49ers perspective, because they went from being sellers to buyers at the snap of a finger there in the kicker market. I'm tweeting on top of Matt Barrow's tweet for Jalen Graham that I'm projecting D. Winters to make the 49ers roster as well. Both he and Jalen Graham popped off the tape this offseason, this preseason, I guess I should say. By the way, as we're waiting for more, maybe we can do a quick lunch with Lombardi check-in. This is what I had from Little Vine on Grant, which is a block away from Washington Square. A very, very high quality sandwich. So Little Vine will change their sandwich menu up every single day. And I've got to hide the text so you can see this. They'll change their sandwich menu up every single day. Today, Tuesday's pastrami. It's this little cute wine shop that just has the sandwich ready to go for you because they specialize in that one every day. And then you could take it down to Washington Square, which is in North Beach, San Francisco. That church in the background, that's where Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe took their wedding pictures. Joe DiMaggio grew up just a couple blocks away from that church. My favorite spot of the city, I would say. Washington Square, North Beach. It's awesome. And there's a lot of cool spots in the city. But Little Vine on Grant, it's just a block away. Just go straight up Filbert, straight up one of those streets, up Telegraph Hill, and you could find that pastrami sandwich, which I'll zoom in on. That's some good photography from the iPhone. Got to give it credit. You can see St. Peter and Paul Church right behind it. So that's Lunch with Lombardi today. Those of you just tuning in, I know there's a lot of you here. I try to mix in some good food from around the world and during football season from the Bay Area for you. We'll also do this for all the 49ers road games this year. And I think I'm going to do a San Francisco food special for those of you who are coming into town for a 49ers game. So Saturday you could spend in the city. Sunday you can go to the game. I think that sounds like a good plan. But one more time, since I'm sure that this sandwich is popular, here you go. We're still waiting for that 49ers press release. They're dragging their feet. It's 1:13. Again, all cuts have to be in at this point, but they're not all in at that. Well, they are all in at this point, but they're not all publicized at this point. The cut down deadline was at 1 p.m. It's now 1:14 p.m. Pacific time. So we sit here waiting, and we can update you as we wait on what the 49ers have done already. Again, if you want to take a look at this, I think Mike has put the link into the description. This is the 49ers 53-man roster cut down tracker. So far today, we have found out that Tay Martin, the receiver, has been cut. A lot of people have compared him to Kendrick Bourne. Probably a stronger version of Kendrick Bourne, especially 49ers version of Kendrick Bourne. Had a good camp. Quantrez Knight, Il Manning, Jason Poe. All four of the players cut so far have a good chance to be on the 49ers practice squad, but they're going to have to clear waivers first. A couple days ago, the 49ers waived Nate Brooks, defensive back, Ladarius Hamilton, defensive end, Breeland Speaks, Kiava Tizino, Breeland Speaks, another defensive end, Kiava Tizino, and Spencer Wagee. Tizino, a linebacker, Wagee, defensive end, teammates with Trey Lance in college. So the 49ers are now down to, you could see in the counter down here, are now down to 80 players. That means they have 27 more cuts to publicize. They haven't publicized any, but we know of the cuts that happened so far. Actually, they publicized 5 a couple days ago, but of the cuts that happened today, they haven't publicized any, but we can put them into our formula. They also cut Taco Charlton, who we can put up here, but he was already on IR, so he wasn't counting toward the 90-man roster limit. Waived with an injury designation. That's where Taco Charlton was at. So I just took him off of the IR list. So we continue to wait. I wonder what the chat's like right now. Bosa is not on the practice squad. Bosa's on, somebody's asking if Bosa's on the practice squad. Nick Bosa's on the reserve list. The reserve list means he's not going to be counting against the roster. So in a weird way, ironically, the delay in re-signing and reporting from Nick Bosa might give the 49ers some extra flexibility on this cutdown day. But now they want Nick Bosa to sign quickly. It was only for a little bit that they said, hey, hold on. If you're going to sign, just give it a day. Now they want him to sign quickly. Because making that initial 53 for Bosa, not being on the reserve list, that would have closed off a spot. So we'll see what the 49ers might do with the extra spot. 49ers have waived Jack Coletto. This was another one that, we had projected, but he's going to be popular. Matt Barrows reported this. The Jets, Seahawks, Broncos, and Chiefs were all shooting to try to get Jack Coletto, the very versatile fullback, before the NFL draft. Now the Broncos and Sean Payton really wanted him. So now the question is, does Jack Coletto fit on a 53 somewhere? It's a lot different to fit on a 90 than a 53. So will the 49ers be able to re-sign Jack Coletto to the practice squad? It's a lot easier to want a player for the 90-man roster than for the 53-man roster. So SF should have a good chance to bring back a potential fullback of the future. Boom. All right, so let's go to the roster now that we have the Coletto news. Jack Coletto's up here. As you can see, he was projected to not make it. So we can erase Coletto, and we can put Coletto into the list of cuts. The 49ers are now under 80. They're at 79 based on what we know. 10 players have been cut over the last few days. I'm not including Taco Charlton. I'm talking 10 from the 90-man roster. The 49ers dealing with a lot of injuries right now. And it's hard to tell how serious some of them might be. I think most of them aren't serious, but we're going to get a better gauge on how they're approaching these injuries through how they build this roster. What's the cutdown going to look like? What's the practice squad going to look like? They have to manage both the short term and the long term with this roster. Now, remember that this roster for the 49ers is not the final 53-man. It is the first 53-man roster. There are going to be many iterations of this roster over the course of the season. It is a living, breathing document. They're going to be cutting players. They're going to be adding players. This is just the first version of it. So there's no productive reason to act like everything is set in stone with this 53-man roster, because it's not. And the first big expansion following the cutdown is going to be tomorrow, when the 49ers start re-signing players to their practice squad. And the practice squad is really critical too. The practice squad nowadays, with the rules, you can call players up, you can activate players from that practice squad, and they are going to be in position to help you. They really are. So it is a taxi squad. It's an extension of that roster. Waiting for more news here on Cutdown Day. The Cowboys have officially cut Will Grier. He's available for the 49ers to put onto their practice squad and burn the world down. I mean, if that happened, then we'd have complete chaos on social media. I mean, it would be this right here. This is officially possible now. Will Grier to the 49ers practice squad. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying that We could light the world on fire if it did. They should have just traded Lance for Greer. So far, to summarize, the 49ers are at 79 players. Again, Tay Martin, Quantrez Knight, Ilm Manning, Jason Poe, and Jack Coletto cut so far. We are waiting for the 49ers official email. The cut down did happen and was cut off 22 minutes ago. 49ers waited until the very last possible minute. That lets me know that they're probably looking for all the options they could have as far as trades went. Didn't end up executing a trade. At least one hasn't been reported. It is possible that they just didn't leak anything out and something has happened. But until we hear official word from the team, we can't really assume anything final. But we do know through some of the leaks that they have cut a few players and they're now down to 79 on the 90-man roster. No word yet on Deshaun Jameson. Matt Barrows just tweeted that. Deshaun Jameson, if you go to our projection, is a player who Matt Barrows and I co-wrote our 49ers roster projection. We did not expect him to be on the 53-man, but there might be a shot for him to make it. There really is. That's one that we were really conflicted on. Now, theoretically, the 49ers could take Brandon Allen, waive him, or release him, have a prearranged deal with him for the practice squad. If Brandon Allen's okay with that, that can open up another roster spot because Allen's a vested veteran, and an extra roster spot could go to somebody like Deshaun Jameson. It's all on the table for the 49ers. Somebody in the chat section just called me boring. Do you see anybody else sitting here as the roster cuts are coming in talking about them? Do you know how hard it is to multitask and to be doing my writing job, updating the roster for you and talking about it? I'm sure you're not talented enough to do that. And I don't think anybody else is doing it. So you either show up here and get your information or you don't. Don't complain about it. I don't think there would be 1,714 people watching a boring show. You know what? You're going to get blocked. There we go. That felt good. They're blocked. He can't comment again. I do expect Brandon Allen to make the 49ers 53-man roster. The 49ers are shifting Darrell Luter Jr. to PUP for the regular season. No. They're not. Okay. Matt Mayoko said that that's an expected move. He's not actually reporting that. I've already said that's an expected move. So don't overreact there. That's nothing new. Darrell Luter Jr. was physically unable to perform before the cut down, which makes him eligible to be on physically unable to perform to transition to the regular season version. That's PUP. Physically unable to perform is PUP. You cannot be on PUP for the regular season if you weren't on PUP in the preseason. Once you practice, you can't go on PUP. You have to be hurt before the season started. That happened to Darrell Luter Jr., so he now stays on the regular season PUP, which gives the 49ers flexibility to potentially activate him after 4 weeks. I think Luter is damn close to being healthy. I've seen him dancing out on the practice field. He hasn't been practicing, obviously, but he's been out there. So, and that was a knee injury for Darrell Luter. So the rookie cornerback, 5th-round pick out of South Alabama, the 49ers are going to have a chance to see him this season, but it won't be until after 4 weeks. So Interesting roster maneuver there. They didn't think it was worth it to activate him during training camp because he would have taken up another roster spot. So this team has a crowded situation and they want to be as efficient as possible with these spots. All right, so we go back here. You could see Darrell Luter Jr. He's theoretically on the 90 man right now. He's not going to count against the 53 once he's on pup. And maybe we can just transfer Darrell Luter Jr. over to pup. Mayoko didn't officially report that. He said that that's an expected move. Well, I'm going to go ahead and also expect it because I have been expecting. I've said that a lot here over the last few weeks. We'll put Darrell Luter Jr. down here. That puts the 49ers down at 78. '49ers at 78 and counting right now, counting down. We're waiting for the 49ers to have their official release. I'm just taking you through this, giving you analysis along the way. If you want to see who the 49ers cut so far, the list is right here. Nate Brooks, Ladarius Hamilton, Breland Speaks, Kiava Tizino, Spencer Wagee, Tay Martin, Quantrez Knight, Ilm Manning, Jason Poe, and Jack Coletto. You want to talk about the Ilm Manning and the Jason Poe cuts? I think both we projected, obviously. Both players, they have a lot in common. Shorter in stature, so they don't have the typical NFL-type build, but they're both good projects for your practice squad. They're underdog stories, and underdog stories are fun. Jason Poe last year was on the practice squad. They waived him again. I think he's got a chance to be back there for the 49ers because who knows? At some point, we might see him in specialty packages with how athletic he is. A 4.9 40 is nothing to joke around about for an offensive lineman. And then you have Ilm Manning, only 6'2", but he started, 40 games at Hawaii at left tackle, was their best offensive lineman, played really well for the 49ers in the preseason. It wasn't perfect, but he showed them that he could be expandable. His skill set's expandable to tackle, even at 6'2". He's going to be a guard in all likelihood down the stretch for the 49ers, assuming they can get him back to their practice squad. They're going to develop him at guard, but the fact that he can also play tackle, and he showed that this preseason, is really, really big for Ilm Manning's future because they could potentially depend on him to play two spots as a reserve. And as a reserve in the NFL with such limited roster spots, being able to play multiple positions can be your ticket. So the story is not over yet for Ilm Manning. The story is not over yet for Jason Poe. Same for Jack Coletto. Talk about versatility. I think the 49ers are going to want him back. I think they're going to want Quantrez Knight back. I think they're going to want Tay Martin back. It's 5 players cut today, and there are 16 spots on the practice squad. So there's room to keep some of these players around. All right. Man, that's taken the Niners a while. I forgot when it came in last year. This cut down's always at 1 p.m. Pacific. So it's been 30 minutes now, and we still don't have official word. Again, these cuts already have had to happen, but we're still waiting for them. Now, I guess while you're waiting, we could take a look at our 53-man roster projection. There it is. 49ers 53-man roster projection. Trey Lance settles one of the biggest questions. Right now, you can get onto the Athletic for $1 a month. I'm going to take this projection link and copy and paste it into the chat section. It's $1 a month here. And as you can tell, you're going to have the most detailed coverage that there is on the Athletic of the 53-man roster cut down. So far, every single one of our projections has been correct. I'm not saying we're going to go 90 for 90 or 53 for 53. I guess 90 for 90 because we're predicting he was going to get cut as well. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That would be really hard. But as you can tell, Matt Barrows and I put a lot of work into this 53-man projection. And this is the result. It's up there. We got Brandon Allen as the headliner. I think he's going to make the 53 as well. And you can go ahead and check this out for $1 a month. Go ahead and check it out. It's in the chat section. Mike, can you add that to the description as well, please? Thank you, if you're able to do that. I know it's really hard for me to do a ton of stuff at once, so we'll get Mike to do it. We are still waiting for the 49ers to release the cuts. So anyway, check it out. Athletics, $1 a month, 53-man cut down day. The proof is in the pudding right there in that article at that link. You sign up, you support the cause, support the channel by hitting the subscribe button right there. You can subscribe to two things right now, the channel and the written work. And then we kind of combine both of them. I obviously bring in another element into what I do, and that is where you can eat. I try to make football about more than football because it is about more than football. Football's culture, right? And especially the 49ers, they play in San Francisco. I know they play in Santa Clara. I'm talking about the San Francisco Bay Area. The whole Bay Area is a food hotspot. The whole Bay Area has great history that's intertwined with the 49ers. So how could you not showcase what this area has to offer? Speaking of showcasing what this area has to offer, why don't we go back to it right now? This is Lunch with Lombardi, a good way to pass the time. Little Vine on Grant today, the pastrami. Again, they make a different sandwich every day. You could only pick one on Tuesdays, or at least this Tuesday was the pastrami. I don't know what tomorrow's is going to be, but from 11:30 to 2:30, you can get a good sandwich. Who knows where Lunch with Lombardi tomorrow is going to be? But you could check it out. Little Vine, North Beach, San Francisco. I'm going to answer some questions right now. We're going to do a little 49ers Q&A. So let's get some good questions in there. I haven't been in the chat in a while, so type in some questions and we will see when stuff drops. I'm waiting for the email from the 49ers. I'm waiting for more news as to who was cut. Obviously, this is me just buying some time, but we can open up that 49ers Q&A right now. A player can be called up from the practice squad twice. Yes, he can play twice. Then after the third time, you got to promote him full time to the active roster. Now, the difference between the practice squad and the full-time roster is a huge pay difference. You can make a maximum of $380,000 in the practice squad. For veterans in the NFL, the active roster is a minimum of $1.08 million. So that's a big, big difference. No kicking news yet. No kicking news. We'll see. 49ers had turned into buyers instead of sellers. That was a big twist. Did that from the Bay today. Did a show from the Bay while I was swimming. You could check it out. It's already up. You cannot go wrong with pastrami. No, you can't. That's the pastrami right there. No new transactions up on this end. I did get an email, but I'm not sure if it's from the 49ers. Let me see. Nope. It's from Stathead Football. It's not from the 49ers. 49ers Q&A. Let's keep it going. I can't even keep up with this chat, though, so you're going to have to bear with me if I miss your question. Will Greer for QB3? I don't think so. I think it's going to be Brandon Allen, but that would be crazy if it were Will Greer. I predict that Jake Moody is going to make the 53, Zane Gonzalez won't, and that the 49ers will sign a kicker to their practice squad. That's what I think is going to happen, especially now that they didn't trade for one. How do I see the Bosa situation working out? I think that Nick Bosa will sign. I don't know exactly when. I figured it'd be after the cut down because it benefits the 49ers for it to be after the cut down. But based on what Rappaport said yesterday, they weren't close yet. Now, these things can speed up in a hurry now that they're post the cut down. So I think that he'll sign. I think he'll sign before the start of the regular season. And I think he's going to have a good year. Now, as far as money, I do think he'll surpass Aaron Donald. I think guarantees are probably a big part of the sticking point here. I think the 49ers will have to structure this creatively, possibly even with a triple bonus structure with guaranteed option bonuses kicking in years 2 and 3. Something like 5 years, 159 million, 32 million a year, 31.8 million a year, whatever surpasses Aaron Donald. But I think that a lot of the sticking point now may also be looking at what Chris Jones might sign for, because Chris Jones is over there in Kansas City holding out. So it's a complicated negotiation with a lot of big names having either earned contracts recently like Aaron Donald or big names also trying to gun for contracts like Chris Jones. And Nick Bosa, since he's the reigning defensive player of the year, is obviously entitled to ask for a whole lot of money. So we'll see. I do not think they're going to trade Nick Bosa, though. No, there's a lot of questions about that. Any new news, Mike? I have so many windows open here. The New York Giants have already released their team captains. It's quick. 49ers generally don't do that until about a week before the season. This is the longest I think we've ever waited for the 49ers to release their official 53 man. I'm just here helping you pass the time with a nice little 49ers Q&A. Bosa won't count against the 53 because he's going to be on the reserve list if he hasn't reported yet. And if you're on the reserve list, you don't count against the 53. It's as simple as that. It's called the reserve did not report list in training camp, and then it transitions over into, I think, an active reserve list or something like that. But it basically, if you're on the reserve list, you're not counting against the 53. So his holdout actually gives the 49ers an extra spot. No, I do not use fins when I swim in the bay. That would be cheating. I don't think it's as easy to play quarterback as you're saying that it is emergency. I mean, Kyle Juszczyk could be the emergency fourth quarterback too. It's there's a lot more refinement in NFL. It's not just like Jack Coletto should be on the roster because he could play fourth QB. They're hoping they could keep Coletto. I think there's a difference between teams wanting him after the draft and teams wanting him now, because teams after the draft had 90 spots. Teams now have 53 spots. So the 49ers are gambling that Coletto is going to clear through waivers and they'll be able to keep him. They cut him. Well, the answer why they cut him, they just have a damn crowded roster. I mean, you just look at the 49ers roster right here and you see a bunch of big names. How do you fit them all on the left side of this line? There's only 53 spots. So hopefully that answers your question. Trey Sermon, by the way, got cut by the Eagles today. a year after he made the 49ers initial 53, but they jettisoned him the day after. Remember, they had 6 running backs last year to start? Yeah, and then there's guys, even Jawan Jennings can be an emergency quarterback for the 49ers. So it's, you don't carry guys just so they could be the 4th emergency quarterback. You've got to think about the bigger picture of the roster. What's the best sandwich shop in Visalia? That's a great question. They've got, this might not be a sandwich shop, but Component Coffee downtown's got a great breakfast burrito. That's really good. I'm trying to think. Where do I get sandwiches in Visalia? Ooh, I know. Orange Works. Orange Works downtown. They got a really good tri-tip sandwich, and they'll give you this orange ice cream as well with it as dessert. Orange Works is really good. Go check it out. They used to be out in Strathmore. They're still there. That's where their flagship is. It's out in the countryside, out toward Porterville. But if you go to Orange Works on Main Street in downtown Visalia, I do think that's the best sandwich that you'll get in Visalia. Good question. Visalia, by the way, is my hometown for those of you who think that's really random. Component Coffee is really good. Is Trent Taylor coming back? It's possible. The 49ers need a returner. That's part of this whole equation on cutdown day, right? You need a returner. Trent Taylor's done it. He did it effectively for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's reliable there. Maybe that will be a short-term move the 49ers make, but the Bengals did cut him today, and he's free to sign anywhere. Remember, with Danny Gray and Ray McLeod currently hurt, the 49ers might be looking for some help at receiver. They could also just bring back guys to the practice squad like Tay Martin and have those guys activated on a week-by-week basis. It's all possible for the 49ers. Going to Prague soon. Any recommended eaters there? Well, just, search David Lombardi Prague or 49ers Prague, because I think I talked about some when I was out there. There's so many good ones. But get the fried cheese when you're out in Prague. Find a good place. There's a place out local with a K, Lokal, that has really good Czech fried cheese. Go there, get the fried cheese and the tartar sauce. That could be my recommendation for right now for you. Ronnie Bell has. We don't know officially if he made the roster or not, but I'm fairly certain that Ronnie Bell is going to make this 49ers football team. Absolutely, fried cheese. Somebody's asking. Fried cheese, yes. It's very, very good. Looking back now, do I think the 49ers should have made Trey Lance QB2 in order to get more reps with the second team? No, that shouldn't have been the reason to make Trey Lance QB2. You make your bet. This is the NFL. It's not ring around the rosy. You put your 2 best quarterbacks in positions 1 and 2. They ran a competition. Sam Darnold was better than Trey Lance. Brock Purdy was better than both of them. So Brock Purdy's QB1. I mean, they didn't even have to be a competition for Purdy because he had already established himself. So it was Lance against Darnold for 2. Darnold wins the spot. It was fairly obvious to the 49ers. They decided before the last preseason game even hit. And there are no handouts in the NFL. You don't give Trey Lance QB2 just because he needs more reps. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation has changed over the course of the past 2 years, mainly due to those injuries. But the 49ers are where they are right now. It was time for them to demote Trey Lance to number 3 because Sam Darnold had outperformed him. Then you decide, is it worth it to keep Trey Lance as number 3, or is Brandon Allen good enough? Does he play the role of the number 3 better? Because Lance would need reps, and he's not going to get them at 3. No, that's the answer. Okay, they traded him away. That's the quickest, most concise way that I can explain what happened in the Trey Lance situation. The 49ers made a decision based on the now instead of a decision based on the facts of 2 years ago when they drafted Trey Lance. They acknowledged that things did not go the way that they wanted them to. They did not succumb to sunk cost fallacy. It's the best way to put it. Sunk cost fallacy is the error of continuing to pour resources into something just because you poured a lot of resources into it in the past. It's not a good business play. So the 49ers operated forward with the best business play possible right now. There's a reason why this roster is really strong on the aggregate. It's because the 49ers have acted in the best interests of smart business plays over the course of time. That doesn't mean that you're always going to make the right decision or that every single decision is going to work out. But if you try to approach everything in smart business sense over the long run, if you build a good organization, you should have more talent coming in than talent leaving. And that's why the 49ers have a strong roster right now. '49ers cut Kerry Hyder and Austin Bryant as procedural moves. They plan on signing both back to the 53 tomorrow. Okay, this is big news. So both will essentially make the 53-man roster, but technically haven't made it yet because they're vested veterans. And I could put this up on the screen for you right now. Here, let's go with this. As vested veterans, neither Kerry Hyder Jr. nor Austin Bryant will be exposed to waivers. So the 49ers, okay, the roster cuts are out. We're going to go through this right now. Okay, here they are. 49ers just released it. I'm going to copy and paste this and toss it open onto the screen. So Luter officially on PUP, yes. That was expected. We're going to go through all of these, all right? Just give me 1 second. All right, there it is. 49ers moves are out. 49ers 53-man roster cut down. So we've got to go through these one by one. This is new to me as it is new to you. So patience right now as we go through this. Darrell Luter to PUP as expected. IR for Zane Gonzalez. So that is season-ending IR for the 49ers. They're going to have to reach an injury settlement with him. IR for Taylor Hawkins, who broke his hand. IR for Cam Latu, who's probably going to need knee surgery. IR for AJ Parker, who suffered a hamstring injury. The following players have been released. Austin Bryant, but he's going to be back tomorrow, the defensive end. Chris Conley, he might be back to the practice squad. Troy Fumagalli, same thing. Running back, Brian Hill. Kerry Hyder, but he'll be back tomorrow. That's a pre-arranged re-signing for Kerry Hyder. T.Y. McGill released. Jeremy McNichols released. Anthony Miller released. That was expected after the really poor punt return. Willie Snead released. He's a big-time candidate for the practice squad. Following players have been waived. Alex Barrett, Jack Coletto, Marlon Davidson, Joey Fisher, Alfredo Gutierrez. I would expect for sure Gutierrez to be the international exception. Miles Hartsfield waived, not surprising there either. Keith Ismail, backup center. Deshaun Jameson, okay, Deshaun Jameson waived. Quantrez Knight, Corey Luciano, Il Manning. Some of these we've already reported. Tay Martin. Ooh, Marcelino McCrary Ball waived. I'm sure they're going to want him back on the practice squad. Jason Poe, Curtis Robinson, Trey Swilling, Leroy Watson, and Isaiah Winstead. All right, so in the context of the 49ers 90-man roster now, why don't we make these moves? So you can go ahead and go to the link that I've shared a little bit earlier, and I'm going to make these moves on the spreadsheet at this roster cut down. So, Darrell Luter onto PUP. We got that one right. Zane Gonzalez onto injured reserve. We got that one right. We had guessed that Zane Gonzalez would not make the 49ers 53-man roster, and that ended up coming to fruition. Taylor Hawkins onto injured reserve. Also a situation where Taylor Hawkins did not make the 53-man roster. He was not projected to make it. Cameron Latu did not make. So Cameron Latu, the third-round pick, will not play this season for the 49ers. So he is an injury redshirt, essentially. Cameron Latu, injury redshirt for the 49ers. They do not have to release him. They can keep him as their top third-round draft pick from this past season. A.J. Parker was competing to be the nickelback, hurt his hamstring. He can also be an injury redshirt for the 49ers, who might need another nickelback sooner rather than later. The following players have been released. Austin Bryant, and expected re-signing for Austin Bryant. So we're going to note on the right side, we're going to put a little star that Austin Bryant should be re-signed tomorrow. We'll see what the corresponding moves there are. So we remove Austin Bryant from the 53. He was over here on the left side. I'm circling there. Jack Coletto, I've already moved him off. Marlon Davidson, cut. Joey Fisher, the lineman out of a small school, Liberty, cut. We had that projected as well. That's going to be a waive, Joey Fisher. They might want to bring him back to the practice squad. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Then we have Alfredo Gutierrez. Alfredo's going to be on the practice squad as the international exception. So we'll put Alfredo into this list. Miles Hartsfield came over from Carolina, had played for Steve Wilkes before, but did not have a good training camp on the field. He was mainly around to help the 49ers instill Steve Wilkes' system. It missed a couple tackles there in the preseason. That was fairly ugly. Keith Ismail, the center, he was the third string center. He's been cut as well. He had some snapping issues during training camp. Deshaun Jameson, I'm sure the 49ers want to bring back Deshaun Jameson. Might be a little bit risky, but he has flashed this offseason. Undrafted free agent, defensive back out of Texas. So Deshaun Jameson, one of the 49ers cuts. Quantrez Knight, we already had him on the list. Corey Luciano, undrafted free agent center. He has also been cut. That is not surprising on the Corey Luciano front. Then we have Il Manning cut. Yes, Marcelino McCrary Ball. He also was not on the roster projection. So Marcelino McCrary Ball goes into the cut list. I'm sure the 49ers will want to bring him back because they had a lot of linebacker talent. Jason Poe, already had him. Curtis Robinson, the special teams linebacker, had a pick in training camp. Trey Swilling, cornerback. We had Leroy Watson as well cut. I think we already had that figured out. And Isaiah Winstead. So Isaiah Winstead, they might want to bring Isaiah back to the practice squad. He was the receiver that was discovered through social media. I still have a few more to go through because I just went through all the waves. Now we have to go through the releases. So I had Austin Bryant, we already talked about him. Chris Conley has been released. He had a minor shoulder injury, but must be healthy now since they didn't have to put an injury designation on Chris Conley. He impressed, though. He might be back for the 49ers. Troy Fumagalli, practice squad candidate. Let's see. Brian Hill, running back, brought him aboard just a few days ago for preseason depth. Terry Hyder Jr., that is procedural for the 49ers. He will be back, just like Austin Bryant, tomorrow. So we take Hyder off of the 53-man projection right there. So the 49ers now have 2 open 53-man spots. Then we move down to T.Y. McGill. Had a nice preseason. Could be a practice squad fill-in for the 49ers. Now, they're going to have to be picky and choosy about this practice squad. There's only 16 spots. They can't fit everybody. Jeremy McNichols, he was a camp body at running back. Anthony Miller and Willie Snead. Willie Snead the fourth, if we're being technically correct. So Anthony Miller, Willie Snead the fourth. It appears that, okay, so now looking at this, because I don't see, oh, Alex Barrett has been cut too. So by the process of deduction, we can see who made the 53-man roster and who didn't. The 49ers have 3 spots because Bosa's not on it. So Braden Willis, Nick Zakel, and Robert Beal Jr. have all made the 53-man roster out of players that we did not expect, at least in our projection. All right, I have to send out a tweet on this. Let me do that. Players who made the 49ers 53-man roster who are not on Matt Barrows and my projection are on Matt Barrows and me are tight end Braden Willis, offensive lineman Nick Zakel, and defensive end Robert Beal Jr. SF has had an extra spot to work with since Nick Bosa is still on the reserve list. Boom. All right, so now let's slot the players that have remained into the 53-man roster. So Braden Willis, boom. Nick Zakel, boom. Robert Beal Jr., boom. So now you could look at this at every single position. The 49ers have carried 3 quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, and Brandon Allen. They've carried 5 running backs, Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Ty Davis-Price, Kyle Juszczyk, and Jordan Mason, who's dealing with a foot sprain. They've carried 6 wide receivers, Ayuk, Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Ronnie Bell made the team, yes, Danny Gray, and Ray McLeod. They've carried 4 tight ends, George Kittle, Charlie Werner, Braden Willis, and Ross Dwelly. They've carried 9 offensive linemen, Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, Colton McKivitz, 2 tackles. So Jalen Moore, the backup left tackle, Matt Pryor, the backup right tackle, and then 2 backup interior linemen, John Feliciano and Nick Zakel, who's the younger project. They've carried 9 defensive linemen, but technically only 8 defensive linemen, but they're waiting for Bosa to re-sign. So Bosa is on the outside of the picture on the reserve list, but for all intents and purposes, 9 here. Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, Jackson, Farrell, Givens, Kinlaw, Beal, Kalia Davis. 6 linebackers, as predicted. Warner, Greenlaw, Burks, Winters, Flanagan, Foles, Jalen Graham. And cornerbacks and safeties, Ward, Ambry Thomas, Lenore, Hufanga, Gibson, Isaiah Oliver did make the roster, Samuel Womack, George Odom, Jair Brown. And then you look at the specialist situation, Jake Moody made the team, Mitch Wishnowski, and Tabor Pepper. So that rounds it out. 49ers 53-man roster. Remember, this is only the first roster. Now they have to make some practice squad additions. Then they need to re-sign Nick Bosa. There's going to have to be a maneuver there. The first of many rosters. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. I have to get to writing now. So go ahead and check out the roster. It's pasted somewhere here. You could check it out. And then Athletics, $1 a month. We were pretty damn close with our 53-man roster projection. Proud of that. Now off to the analysis. The cut down has happened. Now the 49ers lock and load with the team as they gun for Super Bowl number 6. We'll talk to everybody soon.